decision to move Werenski down and Duclair down, that this is you playing the long game in terms of the development of those players and of this franchise?
It's not a. I have to be honest in making a call when some guys are playing better. We do that with everybody, and no one. We can't just pick and choose the people. Some guys are playing better, and there has been some struggles in Z's game and Duke's game. So a combination of both. So we have to make the call. But there's certainly, it's not to grind them. It's to try to help them. Yeah. Take a little pressure off of Z, playing with Jonesy and playing top minutes against top players. And Duke we have to teach him. I just don't think I don't think it's a situation where he doesn't want to learn, doesn't want to try. We have to teach him what try is, the definition of try, and we have to teach him how to play away from the puck, because I just don't think he understands it. And so the onus falls on us, but as we're going through that, we're certainly not going to put him in the spots we hope in the future we can right now.
And you keeping, I think, Werenski still on the power play, the second unit. I think Duclair is still a part of this. Is that just proof that this isn't a doghouse thing, that this is...
This is not a doghouse thing. No, it isn't. With, Duke's come close to the doghouse. I think when you bring the doghouse into it, it's when you don't think they're listening to you. And I think they're listening. Yeah, I do. So, this is it's an ever-going process with a young team, young players, of teaching. And we have to take responsibility, but we certainly have to try to do the things the way we feel is best for them in making them understand.
Coaches, organizations see the long game. Do players see the long game, or do they just see Florida Thursday?
Yeah, it depends on the player.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to communicate with the player. I've had very frank conversations with both these players we're talking about to make sure they understand. I think that's the biggest part of my job, is making sure they go home out of the building that they know why we're doing it and what we expect. I don't want them confused as far as where we're at here and playing head games. I'm not playing head games. We're very honest here as far as where we stand with you. And I think it's important players go home, and if they have questions, they have to find me, because I don't want any player going home kind of in between as far as what's going on.
When you have a player like Duclair that's moved so much, do you think that contributes to it as far as understanding? Like every year he's like on a different team.
Yeah. And I've explained to Duke that I'm not sure what's happened prior, but I'm on his side. I'm on his side. Because I see the potential in him as a player, but nothing's going to be given. And so quite honestly, I'm still trying to figure him out. I'm sure he's trying to do the same thing with me. But I think that's where the communication has to come into play. And we're going to keep on communicating and keep on trying. And the biggest thing with me, no matter what you're trying to teach, what position and what's going on, the one thing they can control is their compete level. That's where it kind of falls off the tracks with me. And you talk about a doghouse, is something you can control is competing. That's that's the one thing I look at right away as far as what type of attitude we're going to have going into this.
But you're saying that you haven't seen that with like Duclair or anyone quite yet.
Well, I think we're trying to get the definition of compete understood. And that's part of a process. That's not doghouse material. That's making sure that they understand what our definition is as coaches. So, and quite honestly, I think it's different from team to team. You can say, yeah, compete, but what is competing? All coaches have different definitions with that. We got to make sure we have our definition right out there front and center.
On team-wise, where is that compete level that you're looking for?
That comes and goes. I thought, if you're asking me right now, I was very happy on how we competed in the Dallas game. As I told you guys at the end of that game, I thought there was two teams. The chances were 10-10 at the end of the night. Wasn't any room on the ice for either team. Both teams played hard. a good fight, not a fight where you tap one another on the ass and say, good job. It was a good fight. I like the way we competed there. Now, is that who we are? I can't say that, because now we have Florida and we've got to get the same level. And that's the constant evaluation that we have as you go through a lot of games. And let's face it, guys, it's a lot of games in the regular season. Sometimes you're not at the same level, but you got to be close. You got to be consistent on where that level is.
And the only gauge is game to game. You can't hang your hat on, well,
No, you hang your hat on that, you're getting spanked against Florida, and you have to be ready to play. That's one thing an athlete can control, is how hard you play. That isn't a science. That isn't an analytic. That isn't something someone can take away from you. That's within you. So that's an easy one to evaluate for me, from an individual to a team.
Do you, in overtime, obviously it's such a free-flowing game, but with Panarin just seems like he wants to either score or make sure you guys score, but he stays out for, I don't want to say ever, but I think he came off the ice for like 15 seconds the other night.
Yeah.
Do you guys mention that to him?
Sure we do.
Or
Yeah. You got to be really careful, though. We have talked about his shift lengths. He has an uncanny ability to, when he extends his shift, he does something pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's the fine line of a coach. That's a read by me, is how much rope you give him in those type of situations. So sometimes if you want to be cookie cutter and say you need 35, 40 seconds, get off the ice and all this crap we used to talk about, I don't think you're coaching that individual player the proper way. I think it goes, there's all different types of thoughts with that, with different players. I try to stay out of his way. Right now I think he's fighting a little bit. I want to try to help him through it. I'm going to let him make his call. If it starts getting ugly, then I'll reel him back in. But you got to be really careful in not overstepping your bounds when you have a creative guy like that, and versus coaching another player. And quite honestly, players may not want to hear that, but that's the lay of the land. When you have a talent like that, an instinctive player like that, those are the things we have to weed through, and not think everybody has to go by the same guideline in those type of situations.
So you're seeing it also in regulation time, not just.
Oh yeah.
Or we're talking mostly overtime.
Yeah, well, I'm talking regulation, because
okay.
there are extended shifts there, and I think it's hurt him a little bit, and we've talked about that. So those are the reads we have to make. Those are conversations we have all throughout the year.
Did Scott Harrington just earn a shootout spot?
Yeah, that was a good. Yeah, we'll see. There's a few other guys ahead of him, but that was really good for our team, though. That's good for Harry. Yeah.
John, with all your comments about compete just now, is consistency different or part of compete, or is compete part of consistency?
Say it again.
So you just talked about compete. You can't
Yeah.
hang your hat on it.
Yeah.
Every game is new. But
Yeah.
we've also talked about consistency for this team.
Yes.
So what is the relationship between compete and consistency?
It's one of it's the main correlation, as far as at least this team here, how we have to play. Because what it brings us back to is what's in front of the other. Is it all skill, or is it the drive and the grind of a game? And I think our guys are finding out more and more as we've been a little bit more consistent here. It's about making smart decisions and competing on pucks, holding on to pucks, grinding under the hash mark. That's competing. So I think it goes hand in hand.
John, as you guys try and iron these things out that we keep talking about here, how important has it been to have the depth scoring that you guys have had? I mean, you got 2 guys with 8, 2 guys with 7, one with 6. I mean, that's had to be huge.
Yeah.
Maybe a little different than.
Well, I think that's how it's kind of evolved our team. We've got some good players here. It's great to have that, because you need that in an 82-game schedule. But I just don't want us to. There's always a but, huh? I just don't want us to. I think you need to score goals in different ways, and I want to make sure we're playing the right style of game, and make sure we get things in order.
With tomorrow night being Hockey Fights Cancer Night here, you have a guy on your bench next to you who's fought cancer twice and beat it in Brad Larson. What does that say just about him as a person, to be able to go through those things?
Well, we'll talk about Lars because he is just a character guy. I mean, he is. I think he instills all the things we're talking about here: competing and caring, and he has such a great family. Yeah, I think Lars, and I didn't know him at the time when he was fighting this, but he's got such a great positive attitude about how you live your life. I think that probably helped him through it a little bit. But there's a number of other people, and let's move off of Lars. It's a great call about talking about him. But there's a number of other people. We have we have a little bit of things going on with some of our staff and their wives, and yeah. So tomorrow night, it just, to me, as always, and I think we always need it, is puts a little perspective into what we're doing. And yeah, I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but that's the most important thing, just to understand how precious life is, and don't complain about what's going on with you, with your aches and pains. And there are people that are really dealing with some serious health issues with this, and that puts things in perspective.
There's no transition from that, but PLD, I think early in the year you were looking for a little bit more. What maybe have you seen in him's game in the last couple of weeks?
I don't call him PLD. I call him Luke. But
all right, wow.
his legs are moving. I was just talking to my general manager this morning about him, how he's got an inner confidence about himself as far as holding on to pucks, taking on people one-on-one, both in both ends, defensively and offensively. And I just think he just feels, I think he feels he's a really good player right now. And we can tell him he is, and he could have a little success, but these guys, as we see with confidence goes in and out, they're fragile. And I just think he has a really good mindset about who he is, how he has to play, and feels he can make a difference every night. That's powerful, and a lot of players don't have that.
Do you still see more? I mean, we're talking about a 20-year-old kid, more in his game, and if
Oh
so,
God, yes.
Can you articulate what you can see for him?
No, everything about his game, his defensive part of the game, his strength on the puck, his scoring. I think he learns a great lesson the other night where I think it's a pretty good shot it's an unbelievable save, but I'm sure he's saying to himself, I got to put that upstairs, I got to bury that, and he ends up scoring the goal anyway. Yeah, I don't think there's one particular part of his game. He's going to get stronger. I mean, he's only a 20-year-old. And I think he's going to get stronger mentally, too, as far as the confidence that he carries. He has an opportunity to be a dynamite player in this league. And if he goes about the business and doesn't take the wrong avenues as far as complacency and all the stuff that comes, it's a hard road to stay off of. It's part of our job to try to keep him on the right road, but it really falls on the player to make sure he gets about his business always, not just during game time, but all the things and how he handled himself on and off the ice.